from Brussels. Brian, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. This is a right royal mess, is it not? We saw the Taoiseach earlier absolutely adamant the UK had signed off on this deal, but Theresa May obviously had second thoughts or a change of heart. Do the DUP really hold that kind of leverage?
Well, I think today is a big disappointment, Sharon, because a huge amount of work from the European side, the Irish and the British side had ramped up, especially over the weekend and since last Thursday, to get this particular text to where it is today. So I think it is a big disappointment that we haven't managed to close out the deal today. Some positives, however, have to be highlighted. We have still 10 days to go before the EU Council meeting. We have the Prime Minister saying that she wants to come back to try to conclude this deal. Obviously, that's going to take some days now. But it is a big disappointment that at a point where we had such an amount of work on all sides, the deal can't be done today. And I think most people in Brussels are quite bemused in terms of where the British negotiation is at right now.
And many would say that it doesn't augur well when we see the DUP holding the balance of power, coming out with the sort of language that we've heard from them today, calling government ministers chancers and talking about this government's Republican agenda. It's hard to see where we can go from here.
Well, the kind of hysterical language that we had from some people today isn't going to help the situation. What's needed is an outcome. And I think the Irish government, the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, have been absolutely clear on this from day one. We want to move from phase 1 to phase 2 because it's in our interest to get a long-standing, durable, sustainable deal with the UK post-Brexit. But we need guarantees. And the Irish government has had to speak up for people in Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland on the question of the North-South bodies, on the question of the things we currently do on a North-South basis. But as I think the Taoiseach pointed out in his interview earlier, you know, the DUP, yes, speaks for the majority of unionists, but there are other parties in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland didn't vote to leave the EU, it voted to remain, and all political strands of opinion have to be reflected in the final outcome. So I hope people can move back from the brink, cool down some of the language, work with the British government to see if we can resolve all of these issues, but also ensure that we have an agreement that works for everyone on the island of Ireland because of the unique circumstances of Northern Ireland. And that's exactly what the government are trying to achieve in this.
Brian Hayes, I'm just wondering that the agreed wording in this draft document that we saw today, continued regulatory alignment, and we heard it's a softer version than the word divergence. Is that dead in the water now, given that it's been roundly rejected by the DUP, or can it be resuscitated in some way?
Well, we have a text that the words remain, and I think what is obviously needed now is a period of reflection and time for people to understand the significance of those words. What I would say to the DUP is this evening, the British and Irish governments are the constitutional guarantors of the agreement. Under Strand 2, there were specific commitments given on the North-South Ministerial Council and on the implementation bodies underlying that. We already have a position in Northern Ireland where EU-specific regulation can be transposed into Northern Ireland legislation. And I think what the government are trying to achieve here is that we won't have a diminution, any reduction in terms of the North-South operations that currently exist. That's all they're trying to achieve in this. This is not some kind of grand design for a united Ireland. This is practical, pragmatic politics working in the favour of industry, businesses, communities across the border who want a sensible settlement from this process.
It's not just the DUP factor, the North-South factor, because we also saw today there was the Scottish government, Nicola Sturgeon, we had the London factor in Sadiq Khan. We even had the Welsh government coming out saying, I'd like a slice of that too. So it does create confusion, doesn't it? It's hard to see where Theresa May can go from here.
Well, her situation is difficult. She fights a pretty precarious political battle in her own party day in, day out. And of course, the current arithmetic of the House of Commons doesn't help in terms of having a decisive view from the British. But Northern Ireland is in a unique position. You know, it's not like Finchley, it's not like Hampstead, it is on the island of Ireland. its constitutional position within the United Kingdom is guaranteed as long as a majority of people in Northern Ireland want to remain British, which they clearly do. That's not at issue here. What's at issue here is making sure that we don't arrive at an outcome to this process that diminishes North-South cooperation or diminishes the communities who need proper cooperation on both sides of the border. That's what the Irish government are trying to achieve here. And I think over a period of time, the common sense explanation of what the Irish government are trying to achieve here will be understood in terms of the agreement. We thought we had an agreement that I think was fair and balanced and sensible. And I hope the British government can now get back to that agreement in ensuring that we have a good settlement for everyone from this process, Sharon.
All right, MEP Brian Hayes, thank you so much for speaking to us on the programme.